Welcome. So you're probably watching this video because your transmission is leaking oil, and most likely it's because of this seal right here. There's a seal right here. There it is. And so this seal might be damaged and therefore it's leaking. So you want to figure out how to take it out, how to replace it properly. So this video is about that. So there's a split ring, whatever it's called up there. So you got to take that off. And then you could maneuver or crank the seal out with a screwdriver. Now the issue is that here, it's very hard to do. This thing is usually in there pretty tight, and you can't get leverage because of this bar. So we got to take this bar out. So to do that, it's pretty simple. What we do is we set up a platform to put the oil pump on. So that way, this shaft isn't touching the ground because we're going to make this thing slide off. So as you can see, this oil pump here, it doesn't touch this area. So we're going to put the pump, we're going to put the wood right here that this thing can hang. I'll show you how that looks like. I'm going to put this here for now. There's our wooden thing here. And you want to place the oil pump here. You want to place the oil pump so the wood contacts this area. Let's put a little bit more space here, I think. And there we go. Now the oil pump is not touching anything, it's just hanging. So as we can see, now we have some bolts. We've got to figure out which bolts to take care of. So the bolts we need to take care of are, let me move this light. There we go. We're working with 10 bolts. Essentially all the bolts except for these 4. So you want to take out 8 of the bolts, and you want to keep 2 behind. I'll show you why in a second. One bolt is out. Now, take a look at this. This washer is actually stuck here. So you want to make sure that these washers can actually go all the way back, because otherwise this will cause problems when you put it back in here, because you won't be able to go in deep enough. So I'm going to keep these 2 bolts in for now. You want to keep 2 opposing bolts in. 2 opposing bolts. It's because the oil pump is in there pretty snug with an O-ring, and we got to push it out. To push it out, we got to hammer something softly to get it out. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take the last 2 bolts out. Actually, I'm going to keep this one in and this one in. we're gonna unscrew the last 2 bolts there, but not all the way. Have it threaded in by like 2 or 3 threads. And then when we bang on it, we could actually drive the oil pump out. There we go. Okay, so this one is already out. We don't want that. We want it in a good few turns. Okay, this one's out. Let's put it back in. 1, 2, 3 turns like that. Okay. Now, you should be doing this with a plastic hammer. I don't have one, so I'm going to do it with wood. Lightly. Okay, make sure that the oil pump isn't touching anything. This one is. Here we go. I'll show you what the oil pump looks like underneath. I do not have a light on, but as you can see, there's room underneath. Let's make sure there's room. All right, so now just take your time. All the bolts are out. Just double check we have all the bolts here. You should have 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we're missing 1. Which makes sense because it's... Oh, no, 9, 10. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, okay. There we go. I just felt the drop. There we go, dropped again. All right, so I'm gonna hold it from the bottom and unscrew these last screws. Push it down a little bit more. Push it down a little bit more. Push it down a little bit more until it doesn't push down anymore. And by then, it's the 9th screw. That is the 10th. And so now, it'll just come out. There we go. So that is the oil pump. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna move the wood here first. With transmissions, you want to be working on a very clean surface. You don't want any contaminants getting into the transmission. So many small crevices and all that stuff. You don't want to risk it. So always make sure you have a clean workspace. Clean meaning no foreign objects that are not part of a transmission. Obviously oil is fine. So here's our transmission pump. All right, here we go. Now keep note, this pin goes here. Okay. And this plate pump goes to the pump. So just remember that. So we're gonna take this pin out, because we've got to flip it over. Flip it over. Now, the next thing we gotta do is take care of this pin here. Let's get it to focus. There we go. So this is a flathead screwdriver. It's going to take care of this one. Just wiping my hands. So I'll show you how I take care of this. You guys can go ahead and copy. All right, how's that view? There we go. Working right there. All right. Wish me luck, because this is always a little bit tricky, this one. There. Hold your finger here and just ride your screwdriver along the edge and it'll come off. Okay. So the last step is to get the seal off. Now getting the seal off is pretty easy, but there are a few things you gotta know. The first is that, let's see here, lift this up. There we go. In there, you see that ridge there? Right there, right there. There'll be another one over there somewhere. So that is a washer. Okay, you don't want to damage this. But anything from this washer up, that's actually the seal, and you could be pretty rough with this. Okay, a spring is here, so be careful of that. So essentially what you want to do is you want to take a screwdriver and put it in between that washer and the top. Okay. Next, one thing you want to keep in mind is that the seal is actually not fully, it's not fully rubber. There's some metal parts. So if you bend something, it's totally okay. I'm looking in here just to make sure I don't damage the metal piece. And then I'm just gonna clean my hands again. I have a wet rag, just damp, takes the oil off very, very well. Fun fact is that poison ivy, the reason you get an itch is that poison ivy has oils. And so the trick to not getting all messed up with poison ivy is to use a damp towel to take the oils off. Since transmission oil is oil, you could use the same theory here and you get very clean hands. I'm going to use a protective mat here to make sure the metal here isn't damaged. And all you got to do is give her a good little yank there. And the seal comes out. And so this is the washer I was talking about. See if it'll focus automatically. Yeah, so you want to make sure this doesn't get bent. All right, and to put the seal back, you want to make sure it's nicely oiled. There we go, we'll borrow some oil from here. This, now you'll probably use transmission assembly lube here, but I don't have any right now, and this is just my learning transmission. So what you'd do is you'd lube it up, and then you'd start pressing it in. You gotta make sure it goes in nice and straight. There we go. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab a screwdriver and just get it started. until it's evenly seated all around. Once it is evenly seated, okay, let's see if it's pretty evenly seated. All right, that looks pretty good. Okay, once it is evenly seated, we're gonna put something there that can go right inside. And then we are going to use a hammer. I'll put this like this. I'm gonna use a hammer and drive it in. I want to drive it in enough so that the channel there can fit that snap ring back. So it's not fully in, not quite yet. So let's make sure it gets in fully. So now we can see that channel is nice and clear. So we could probably put the snap ring back on. There's the channel. Double check that you could hammer the seal in, but okay, that's in. You want to give this guy a few little knocks here, just to make sure it is in. Always double check things. All right, so that's how you replace your seal. Everything looks good here. This seal rotates, okay. So let's reassemble it. Let's reassemble it. See how there's a little square there? That goes to the top, like that. And, see that? You gotta make sure both of them are facing you. Now, I just put them like this because it looks cool, right beside each other. But you don't have to do that. Give it a spin. Make sure everything works nicely. It does. Okay. So now, we're gonna grab this guy again. And let me reorient the camera here after I clean my hands. We're gonna be putting the oil pump back. Now, this is less of a tutorial, more of a familiarization video. All right, refer to the transmission guide, refer to other videos on YouTube. I haven't yet rebuilt a transmission, I'm just learning. So this is a video to help get you familiarized with the process. It is not the end all be all. All right, so now what we gotta do, you got to put the pin here. Now this thing has a little indent there, right where the light is, that guy right there. So the indent is where the pin goes, and then this square, right where the light is, that goes there, but which side? Well, the P side goes towards the pump, so I'm just gonna put this one right here. So So when the pump contacts it, it'll be facing the right way. Put a bit of oil on the gears here. Okay, make sure everything spins freely. Make sure the bearing spins freely, okay? And you're lining this part up with the pin there. Now, this falls out. These gears fall out after a while, okay? So you gotta be pretty careful, which is why you want this to be leaning back a little bit so the gears don't fall out. So, hold it a different way here. All right, and then before you do that, make sure that the O-ring is lubricated. Why this is important is because you will be pushing the pump in with your hands. So you want to make sure it's very well lubricated. Now I'm using oil from around my transmission. You would use assembly goo. But again, this is just my learning transmission, so I take it apart quite often. All right, here we go. There we go. Okay. We give it a nice little push here. There we go. That's what we want to hear. Okay. And now we know everything's seated properly. We didn't bang it, nothing. So all that's left is to get these bolts in. Now, if you get most bolts in and one's not going in, it's because this washer here, it's stuck on the threads. So you just can't go in far enough, so just make sure that this washer is down all the way. If it's stuck, use some pliers. It's just stuck on the thread, so you essentially just want to thread it off. But if it's being a pain, you know, try your best to thread it off. If not, a hammer is always helpful. Just keep in mind you might bend something, rather bend the washer. But you can tighten things back, it should be good. The long one goes right there. Now, with transmissions, there's a lot that can go wrong. This one's getting stuck. It's like it's cross-threading, but it's probably the washer. So with transmissions, there's a lot that can go wrong. So after every step, we want to double check our progress. So in this step, we want to double check that our oil pump is spinning freely. So how we're going to do that is we're going to get a torque converter and we're going to put it in the oil pump and then spin the torque converter. And if everything spins nice and freely, we're good to go. We assembled everything correctly and everything works properly. So after I screw everything in, I always try going in a star pattern. Just to make sure everything is tightened down evenly. Now, when you do this yourself, check the torque specs. Again, for the 10th time, this is my learning transmission, so I take it apart quite often. This is why I'm not torquing these to the proper spec. If you Google 5HP24 repair manual, you'll find one from Jag Forums. It's 130 pages. Super useful. So follow that, pair that with YouTube videos, and you'll be much better off than you were before you started checking all those resources out. Again, check torque specs. When you do this, this is my learning transmissions. Okay. Now, how are we going to test to make sure the oil pump spins freely? Well, what we're going to do, just wash my hands here real quick with my towel. This is all washed off too. See, it takes the oil off very, very well. There we go. So, what we're gonna do, if you look down there, I'll zoom in for you. Right there. See that little ledge? They're right, they are on two opposite ends. So those are wings, and they're wings from the oil pump gears. And so something attaches to those wings, and it spins the gears, and that pumps the oil. There it is. Before. After. There's a whole study done on how to best take the oils of the poison ivy off, and they tried all the soaps, they tried everything else, and what ended up working best is just damp towel. Damp towel beside me whenever I do transmission work, and works nicely. The trick is have a damp part of your towel, and then have a drier part of your towel so it actually can take all that off. So there you go. So, let me get my torque converter. All right. Now, take a look at the torque converter. You can see that it has cutouts right here. Has cutouts right there for the oil gears, oil pump gears. So all we're gonna do is we are going to align those cutouts with cutouts there. All right, so cutouts here go like that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to align the oil pump, not exactly like this, but actually off a little bit, because I wanna feel when it goes in. I do not wanna guess at all. All right, okay, let's move this out of the way. Make sure it's not dirty. Okay. So I'm going to misalign it on purpose. Right now it's misaligned. Now it goes in. So now I know it's for sure going in. Everything is spinning freely. That means we have successfully put the oil pump back. Everything is properly lubricated. Nothing is binding up, and it works like it should. Again, this is a familiarization video. This is not a tutorial. Use a repair guide. Use the professionals' videos on YouTube. I'm just learning from those guys. But I hope that this video helped you get more familiar with the process. And again, for the repair guide, Google 5HP24 repair manual. Look for posts from JAG forums. It'll be there. And other than that, reference the Russian videos. They're the ones I learned most from. Just reference other videos that are available to you. So, got a lot of oil here again. All right, hope that was helpful.